Hey everybody, Reid Schlegel here, and today we're going to be using my favorite toned tan Strathmore paper along with Copic markers and a few of my other favorite tools to draw a CX sheath, which my friend Rich Orsini and I have been designing together for the last few months. So like every one of my sketches, I start with a base light marker sketch, which allows me to rough out the actual dimensions and proportions of the object I'm trying to articulate and draw. So here I start with the basic part where the blade goes in and then add the details where you actually have the hardware that attaches the sheath to your belt. And then once these major parts are done, I'll go into the sketch and draw all the details that really bring this to life. Because this sketch, we're really going to focus on texturing this nice scale pattern. So I'm going to go through, rough them all out and draw them, add the details. That way next, when I take my pen, I can go and actually start putting those lines down and really committing to it, but slightly tweaking it over and over again until I get it to a place where it looks very, very, very accurate and photorealistic. So here you can see I'm looking for my longest lines first because I want to think about foreshortening and what's going to be in front or back of other objects. If I draw the longest lines first that are in the foreground, it's easier for me to make sure I don't make mistakes where I draw lines and then I have to crisscross over later, making my object feel transparent. So once I have the long lines done, I'll actually stop using my ruler and just break out a pen and use it with my hand. So here I'm working on the brass rivets and all the different hardware and the pieces of leather which curl over and get riveted down so you can actually attach it to the belt. And once this is done, I'll start taking my pen and go into the next details, which I really want to highlight how you can have these nice waxed threads that show where the object is folded over and actually stitched closed. But once this is done, I want to go and get all of the nice details and have them pop out by using line weight. So if you check my YouTube page, I have another video that talks about when and where to use thick, thin, and very thick lines. And here we're basically going to be doing around the outer edge of the object because that's the only part where you can't really see where the one surface meets the next surface, which you can understand if you go back and watch my video. So here I'm going to go rough in with thin lines all of the scale pattern before I now start adding in the base color. So this base color, this object is going to be a black leather, so I want to use the lightest black that you're going to see when you're actually looking at the object in real life. So here I'm using a C7 and I'm slowly doing the outside edge first and then quickly filling in the interior parts. Second, using a burnt ochre to do the bronze color, which is more of a little dark than I want it to be, but it's close enough for the hardware itself. And lastly, I'm going to go and rough in my shadow, that way I can see where my light source is coming from, which allows the next part of this demo to really, really solidify itself and make me understand where I should put my highlights versus my shadows. So here I'm going to start putting in the shadows in all of this scale texture, because each of the scales are actually hammered in and then engraved, so they're actually deep and have three-dimensional texture to it. So there's going to be a dark spot and a light spot. The same thing goes for where the rivets come down and go around the hardware, so there's going to be lights and darks as it wraps around that metal. So once you have some of your dark lines in, this starts giving the dark value, I want my light value. For this one, I'm going to start with a white prismacolor marathan pencil and adding in a white line that shows where the edge of each of those engravings for the scale is going to catch that light coming from the left to right. And I always like in my signature style to add a quick little hard highlight pop with a nice little paint marker. Second, I'm going to go down and take a black prismacolor marathan pencil and do the inverse, basically showing where all the shadows are that are going to complement my nice white highlights. And then going in and seeing where I need a little more value and putting that in around the actual object itself. And you can see I used a Permapaque white marker, and that I like to use to give a little more whiteness because it's kind of translucent. It's not as thick and dense as a paint marker, and it gives that nice extra bit of white and makes the object start really popping out and coming to life. So you can see here I'm looking at what details are left. Now the blade has a nice bevel at the bottom, so it's going to capture a little ridge on the actual front surface. So I'm putting a white Prismacolor dash across there. I'm going to take my paint marker, adding a bunch of burn marks and showing where it would really catch that highlight. And lastly, I'm going to take a really dark marker and using that to pop out all the little highlights and shadows that are under the object itself or are really away from the light source when you're looking at it. Also for my sketches, I like using a little stippling, so I'll take my Pentel Flair and a bunch of little dots. Same thing with my white Gelly Roll Sakura pen, which shows that this is leather and has a little bit of texture to it. It's not a perfectly smooth object. It is a natural material, so it's something that you want to make sure you make it look a little imperfect, so that way it feels much more realistic. Lastly, I like to go and add some details. So I'm giving it a name. Always name your products. Things that aren't named are easy to forget. Showing a little detail that this space in the backside, which is very in shadow and hard to see, I want you to understand that it's a 3-layered stack up of 3mm leather, and then the rivets are what close the object around the hardware. And from here, the object's done. So basically, when you're doing a sketch like this, clean up after yourself, keep your space nice and neat, and then here we go. So it's a nice, thick, veg tan leather that has been dyed black, 3 layers thick. It's been molded so it fits the handle, and then you can take this object, draw it, and here you go. Thanks guys, bye.